When you were talking about, your son and wanting to grasp this concept of connecting and helping, it reminded me of the letter that I wrote to my kids. The big thing that I realized for this year was like my search, my journey is mine and yours is yours. A lot of times parents get caught up in the lives of their kids and they forget to allow them to experiment and find out things that are opposite of what they believe. And the closing, and I just leave off with, may you continually operate from love, kindness, and respect for everyone you meet. And I feel like that is kind of like what you were saying is when I look at my kids, like those things that you do is like just being a good, kind person, remembering that is really important that we pass that on.
I will run, I will rise, I will grow like the world's never known.
All right, so this week I'm talking with Rebekkah. If you remember, I chatted with her for volume 34 of the magazine, People Who Inspire Me. Did an awesome photo shoot with her and chatted. And I reached out to kind of catch back up, and we go over a bunch of different stuff. And one of the things I really respect about Rebekkah is her ability to navigate multiple realms of creativity, multiple areas. And it's something that I always struggled with because I do a lot of things. And I really appreciated hearing her perspective. And I love how she always approaches things not just from personal gain, but it is about giving back to a community or giving back to friends and being able to make sure that you have what you need, and if you do, looking for opportunities to enrich those people around you. And I think she's really great at that. And before I start, I wanted to just take a pause and just remind why I started this series of Evolution of One. This is evolution of me, and the idea was with a lot of the things going on with Corona and Black Lives Matter and political unrest with Trump and a lot of the craziness that's going on. I found myself realizing that some of the people that I grew up with or that I knew have a very different perspective and view than me. And I believe that it's really important to challenge assumptions. So this is about me talking to other people who have a different perspective to challenge my own perspective, challenge my own assumptions so that I can create better, well-rounded beliefs. And I think it's something that we should do as a community, as a nation, as a people, is not be afraid to talk with people that view things differently, because that allows you to see a perspective that you didn't have, so that we can refine our own belief systems as an individual and as a society, as a human species. And that's really the core of what I wanted to do with this. So with that, I'm going to jump into this conversation that I have, and let's get started.
So how have you been?
I've been good. I've been good. Really grateful, thankful for the things that I have right now. Empathic towards a lot of people that don't have jobs or don't have the privilege of being indoors. I've been trying to navigate this new space of what do I do with my time, because I just wrapped up an internship that started in January and I was really busy up until a couple weeks ago. So now I'm at the point where probably a lot of people started way back in March, where they didn't know what to do with their time if they were at home. So now I'm in that boat, and it's kind of exciting. I'm definitely trying to fill it up with a lot of things that make me excited, and a lot of things that I hope will make me a better human at the end of all this. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm worried, but I'm okay. We're all hanging in there, I guess.
What worries you the most? Like, what is it that has you?
I mean, I try to strike a balance between being really informed about what's happening in the world, but also detaching from it. And whenever
Yeah,
I do tune in, it's like every day it's something new and it's something that I've never experienced before. And I don't know how people have lived through multiple pandemics and wars and conflict and stuff, but it is hard, man. Like, it is just, especially now with media and with the availability of coverage of what's happening all around the world, it's just like information overload. And I'm trying to process it, but I can only handle tiny bites at a time. So, what
yeah,
worries me is like being too sucked into it and being so consumed by it that I forget to give attention to my family. I forget to put the phone down and just pay attention to my son. I forget to, I get sucked in so easily. So my worries are just whatever's happening on the outside, but everything happening within my family, within my own tiny apartment, my little bubble, at least that is a source of stability for me. So,
hmm. Well,
yeah.
one of the things I forgot to mention before we started when we were chatting is one of the reasons I kind of started this is that as we're going through this, I think back and was like, what would it have been like to, if you think of like big historic moments of like, the I think of 9/11, the assassination of JFK, assassination of Lincoln. Like, what would it be like to just have someone sit down with everyday people and have
Mm,
conversations? And one of the things specifically that I'm interested in hearing from you is navigating this pandemic while being, I know in the interview we did with the magazine, you do multiple things, right? You have multiple businesses kind of going on. You're very creative in different ways. And so how is it navigating that when, we both do photography, so like that's a challenge. I pretty much haven't done anything for anyone. I've just been doing personal projects, and luckily I have a day job. How's it been for you with all of your businesses that you have?
I mean, my business died back in April. Uh, Not to say I won't resurrect it next year and to pick up where I left off, but I was, like I said, I was in a very lucky position where I didn't take all of my time and put it into one bucket or my photography bucket, and like I did kind of spread it out a little bit here and there with things to kind of keep me financially afloat, which lended me the ability to just be a little bit more creative and relaxed with my business, where I could just focus on my other interests. I had just gotten out of school, I graduated from college, I applied for an internship with Apple, I got it. I had to move up to the Bay Area by myself without my family and just
Oh, I didn't know
focus
all
on
that.
that. Yes. So
Oh, wow.
uh, the internship, it was more of like we call it a career experience within the company, but it allows people from the retail side to kind of leave behind that atmosphere and join the corporate environment and work with a specific team on a project, and you're with them for 6 months up in Cupertino. So I left, and I had already told myself I wasn't going to do any more photography projects during that time. I was just going to focus on that one role for 6 months. So that kind of worked out for me in a sense where like I was able to work full time and take a break from photography and then just kind of reassess, did I keep did I want to keep doing photography? If so, what was the direction that I was going to take once my internship was over? Or would I pursue a corporate role and kind of flip the switch on all my creative stuff and just focus on building a completely new career. So it's just been such an interesting time, man. I did not plan for the virus, obviously, but my internship my internship kept going. I eventually just transitioned from out of the office into working remotely at home, and that worked out pretty great. But, now I'm in this position where I'm like, how do I continue working and doing photography, which is something I still love to do, after, four of my weddings have been canceled this year. People in the wedding business are suffering, and I'm not the only one. There's florists, there's venues, DJs, a lot of people within that environment that I'm now in that position as well, where I've lost a lot of work. I don't know how I'm going to make up for it. I don't know, you know, if photography is going to be the sensible career path for me now after this whole pandemic. So I'm sure a lot of people are pivoting, or they're restructuring what they're going to do creatively to try and survive another pandemic or another wave or the second coming of the virus once things open up. So yeah, I don't know. I wish I had answers, but what I can say is that I'm just trying to be a supportive person for the people who had to have, their weddings rescheduled, or for people that maybe feel bad that they had to call it off and reschedule for a different date. And it's like, I just want to be there for people. I just want to help them work through it. And I'm such an empath that, like, I kind of absorb their feelings of regret and sadness. And I want to just be a source of hope for people, and to say, like, doesn't matter when you're going to get married, if it's just the two of you or if it's 100 of you later on in the future. If you really want to have that big wedding, just call me up. I'll be there for you. I still want to document those moments because they're important now more than ever. Like, people are losing family members, people are
Hmm.
really suffering during this time, and I feel like people need to just focus on that and remember that there will come a time when I can document those special moments for you. um and so that's just kind of like the wedding side of the business. The other part of it is that, I'm a brand photographer for a very small women owned company based in Long Beach, and she's struggling too. She's struggling to keep the business afloat. We're all working for her and refusing pay because we just want to keep her afloat and keep the business going.
Wow.
And so that's just like another part of the business where I'm like, how can I use my photography to help you out? I'm in a good position where I don't need to be paid right now, um, but I can still help you out. And creating content during this time is tricky because you don't want to be tone deaf to what's happening, not just with coronavirus, but also with the Black Lives Matter movement and with all these other things happening. And you don't want to seem like you're taking the brand in a direction that's not aligning with all of these other issues that are happening. So I'm trying to find a balance between how can my photography communicate that we're all in this together, and not, hey, buy this thing, or we have a new style coming out, or like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay on top of it and not be tone deaf with my art, I guess.
Yeah,
That was a lot.
no, that's I think that last part is really interesting. I want to mention, I don't know if you saw, I had like a back and forth with that um the person you do the studio or whatever that you do the brand photography for. And that was like really fun. It was the first time that anyone's ever like mentioned me that I don't know. And so they posted those pictures of you that I took, and I was just so
Yeah.
happy. And I was like, and I was looking through her stuff, and just really original. And like I was saying to her, is this mix of like classic looks that with a modern twist on it. A lot of the stuff that she had, like really beautiful lines,
Yeah.
and just like a lot of the stuff that she was saying, just the yeah, I just felt a real connection with like what she's doing, and it was just fun to just be like, hey, your stuff's really good, and just have like a back and forth, and so
Yeah.
that was really
At least
fun.
Lisa's a great person. You know, I met her through Instagram. I actually just messaged her one day and I was like, I love your stuff. I love that you choose to have sustainable fabrics and that, you know, it's all locally made and this and that. So I messaged her and I was like, do you want to get coffee? And like literally from the day that we just met up and had coffee, I've been friends with her ever since. And Lisa would be a great person for you to like chat with. She has such an interesting background. She's got such great insights about being a mom and running a business, and her passion for sustainability and clothes that don't try to change who you are, but try to grow with you, especially for women, like during, you know, pre-pregnancy all the way up to postpartum, from, you know, women of all sizes. And so I love her journey. And that's why I'm like, how do I use my photography to keep her business alive? Because we believe in it so much, and we know that her core ethos is so important and it's something that we need, especially in this world of fast fashion. So
Yeah.
we're doing everything that we can to keep her business alive.
Well, that's really cool. I love that you are self-aware and you're like, I'm just an empathetic person. And I feel like that, like a similar thing. I feel very fortunate to still have a day job. I know for a long time I've been trying to like figure out how can I, kind of transition over, but I'm not forcing it. I'm not trying to get there before I'm ready.
Hmm.
And because of that, my day job's like very stable and good throughout all this, and I don't have to worry. And so that's when I've been reaching out to a lot of other people and kind of talking with how I'm just curious, like how are you navigating? Like I'm gonna chat with Chris in a couple of weeks. I've had some discussions. Anita's brother, um,
Hmm.
and because like you were saying, in one foul swoop, half of his book of business is just like postponed. Like we don't know when we'll do it, and so it's just like all the wedding season for him was really big, and so there's a
Yeah.
lot of people like that in the service industry when you just and so I'm very cognizant of that going on, and um I'm like you were saying, I'm interested in how people are navigating. I think that the coronavirus, the situation is like it's um it's really exposing people. Like you're saying, a lot of people are forced to take a pause and reassess, which was really the core of like my message and ever like all the content that I put out. Is live life intentionally is about challenging assumptions. And when you have a situation like this, it like you can't do anything but like reassess, because the
Hmm.
things that you were expecting to be there, next week, next month, um, might not be. Like, it's just up and down time. And so like I know that I don't want to be like unsympathetic to what people are going through, but at the same time, I do think I'm very much an optimist, and so throughout this whole thing, um, there is there is something good about us having to take a pause and reassess it. And let me just say, like, it's easy for me to say that having a job where I don't have to worry, like it's easy. Like I will
Right.
recognize that.
Hmm.
And I don't want to I want to acknowledge that. But
Hmm.
there's this quote, um, this what's his name? He's an actor, runs a creative platform, Hit Record. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I forget his
500 Days
name.
of Summer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
What's his? I
Uh,
forget his first name. Gordon Levitt's is. I think I can't remember his
yeah.
first name.
Oh, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did this really cool. I don't know if you follow him, but he does these. I started following him at the beginning of quarantine, and his platform Hit Record is all about just influencing, helping people to instigate creativity. And it's a platform where anything that you put on the platform, anyone else can use to create new, like recreate their version of it. Like it's just full ability to like turn it into its own project, and you can like request people like do voiceover and do like, well, I'm looking for this kind of video, and like collaborative
It's like
projects
a
that way.
commons. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting. But he was doing every day of quarantine, he was just doing creative projects and like posting about them. And one of them,
Yeah.
it was this, he took a snippet of a poem and then did a video, like a group video, like a bunch of people read stuff and then submitted different videos. But it was all about, it was only like maybe like 4 frames or 4 phrases long. It was a short excerpt from a longer poem, but it was basically kind of saying the punchline at the end that I really loved is mind what you would have missed if you'd kept moving. And so it wasn't about the coronavirus, but it made, for me, it made a lot of connection of like, think of where you would have been if you weren't forced to stop. If our lives would have kept going, like it's interesting from that perspective to like take a step back and reassess life. Like you were saying, like it's very fast paced, and a lot of times we don't take a moment to just like take a breath and you know so I don't know, it's easy for me to like have this perspective having a job. I know there's a lot of people that don't, so I don't know, it's
I
hard.
mean,
I struggle with it.
I will totally acknowledge, and I think this is like a general disclaimer from you and I both, that we're in that lucky position where we can reassess um, in a positive way, but that there are
Yeah,
other people that are reassessing in a very detrimental way for them, in terms of like, how are they going to put food on the table? How are they going to pay next month's rent? And I'm like I said, I'm just like, I'm so lucky to be where I am, but to jump on the train of the like the positive reassessment and sort of what it's done to our family. So before the lockdown, um, my husband was working in Santa Monica, and we live like at the very edge of the suburbs of Los Angeles. So his commute one way was like easily an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then same thing on the drive home. So he would be in the car for 5 hours a day. And he would leave the house at around 6 a.m. and then come back at like 7:30 or 8 p.m. So now that he hasn't had to do that, he set up his office in Levi's room. We wake up together, we have breakfast, we have coffee, we take the dog for a walk, we play some video games for a little bit, we tutor our son, and then by 10 o'clock, he's working. He's off by 5. And so I've asked him, like, would you go back to the office if they called you back? And he's like, absolutely not. Like, I can do my job remotely. My, um, my quality of life has gone up so much just because of the sheer amount of time I'm able to spend with you guys. He never saw Levi throughout the day. It would always be
yeah,
before he woke up and at the time when we were all getting ready for bed. So, like, in terms of what it's done for our family, it's been amazing in that sense. Where a lot of people, I'm sure, don't have that luxury, or maybe they have conflict in their homes and have spending that extra time is not the best situation for them. But at least for that, in terms of like what I'm thankful for, absolutely, I'm thankful that we were able to like reassess the way that we spend our time together, um, reassess the way that we unplug every morning and just have time together, and then carry about our business for the rest of the day. So yeah, I think that's it's been great. But in terms of like what do I do with my time now, because my internship ended, the retail stores that I work at are closed. Um, I don't have meetings, I don't have assignments, I don't have deadlines, but I don't know if you could see behind me. So some things that I've been taking up are non-traditional creative projects. And Justin and I inherited a ply craft style Eames lounge chair from his uncle, and it was in terrible shape.
Oh
But
wow.
I was like really adamant about fixing it up and having a chair to pass down to, family members and stuff. So I decided to fix it myself. So I've just been learning how to refinish wood and fix leather, and it's almost done. I'll send you a picture of before and after. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I've never taken, a wood shop or woodworking class before, but I've learned everything on YouTube. Um, I what else am I doing that's like creative? I don't know. We're doing lots of puzzles. I'm rock painting with Levi. I'm like whatever we can do to just like stimulate our mind aside from just keeping up with everything that's happening in the world. But yeah, if I weren't doing any of this, I would continue, working my ass off and not having any time to spend with family. I would be continually stressed and wondering like, how am I going to level up? What am I going to do next? What's tomorrow? Like,
Yeah.
I would just continually be on this like hamster wheel of work, 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 and never pausing to think about what can I do to improve my quality of life here at home. And it's either taking up small creative projects or making a really, really bomb breakfast burrito and having that with a cup of coffee, and then playing Spider-Man on PS4 with my son at 9 in the morning, Like, I love it. I'm having a great time, but I have to stay on top of it. Like, if I don't plan out what I'm going to do this week or what I'm going to do tomorrow, or what kind of chores I'm going to do at home, and I just kind of sit and like sulk on Instagram and get sucked into the news and, be make like angry posts at some person on Facebook that I wasn't friends with for a while, but just realized that they're kind of racist. Like, I have to get out of that mentality and I have to just like unplug and just, yeah.
Well, but before I move into that, one of the things that you were talking about that I wanted to have a question for you is, do you that idea of like, leveling up and going to the next thing? Do you feel like that's partly because you live in LA, like the culture of being in a big, like, because I'm assuming like there is but in visiting LA, it's like much more laid back than when I visited like San Francisco and Silicon Valley
Mhm.
areas. A lot more sense of hustle bustle, but there's still actually one of the guys I just talked with, Matt, lives out in LA, and he was saying that there's a bit of a mentality, at least that he's seen, is he's single, and so maybe it's different. I'm not sure, but he was saying that there's this underlying culture that if a lot of people are trying to get to Hollywood and catch their break, and so there's this feeling of, if you're not helping me move along, then I'm not going to have time with you. So how much of like what you're
Mhm.
talking about is a result of being in LA or in a big busy city culture, versus just overall US, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that question a lot, and it's something that Justin and I think about too. Like, maybe we should just move somewhere mellow, live in Utah, and like have a house on a quiet tree-lined street and not have to feel the pressure to like perform or succeed or hustle as much as we do here. But you have to put in that, like, I love LA. I love living here. I love the cultural diversity, the neighborhoods, the restaurants, the maybe the glamour a little bit. It's kind of cool saying like, "Ah, I'm from Los Angeles and there's a huge cultural diversity here." But you have to put in the work in order to live comfortably here. And so I'm not interested in catching my big break. I could care less about seeing Brad Pitt in the Apple store when I'm working. I just feel like I have to continuously work and find things to do and stay busy in order to survive and financially afford the privilege of living in a big city. That maybe
Mm,
it's not as expensive as the Bay Area or New York, but for a family, it's pretty hard making it here because I mean, we're lucky that we live on the outside of the city and my parents can help with, babysitting. We can do
mm,
our jobs and I can go to LA, every other day and normally without the coronavirus, I could be doing weddings every weekend and stuff like that. But if I didn't have any childcare, it would be impossible to raise a son here and then expect to have all of those freelancing gigs and multiple jobs. That stability, maybe it comes from a different state or a different city, but it's something that we're definitely considering and we're like, where do we go next? Because LA is great for people that can afford it, but we have to work twice as hard to be able to afford it. So I don't know. I mean, I like having multiple gigs and jobs, and it forces me to drive around the city, really get to know my city, meet new people, and photography has been great in helping me do that. Um, but maybe there's a way that I could do that somewhere else and, not feel the stress of having to do it here in LA.
yeah. I don't know. There's something like you were saying. What it's a give and take, right? Because yeah, it's more expensive, but because you're in LA, you're like really close to a lot of action,
Mhm.
and weather is really nice. Like
Yeah.
that
And there's
helps.
brilliant people here. There's just so
Yeah.
much and I can't really be in a place that's like sterile or too slow, too boring, too chill because then I kind of lose that creative spark. Like I vibe off of other people's energy and I actually work with a lot of people that are creative. They're musicians, actors, screenwriters, like so many creative people. And I think that hustling and trying to make it here, but doing it with other people is great because it forces you to innovate and to think about what's the next level that I want to go with my art or how can I utilize the people around me to draw inspiration from them to make my art better but also to give back to that community and
Mm,
to be able to put content out there that will influence or inspire people just as I was inspired by them. I certainly know people who are strictly like, if you don't help me out and if you don't contribute something valuable to my work or to my business or to my art, then you're useless to me. And I mean, I've learned to kind of shed those people out of my life. Um, so it's kind of hard making friends that you trust and friends that will kind of reciprocate the inspiration back and forth and kind of create that dialogue versus like sucking out the life out of you and expecting so much of you and expecting you to contribute more than what they do. It's like it can get very toxic, but here you just have to learn how to kind of shed those people and pick your friends and know that the people that you surround yourself with are going to stick around no matter what. Even if you stop creating art forever and decide to do something else, that those people will still stick around and still be your friend and um yeah, and not expect anything of you. So it's hard, yeah, finding that
yeah.
balance.
But I think that's one of the things I actually really liked about you. I really admired is I think the first time that I reached out to you was when we did the coffee video, that Nita's pour over coffee,
Hmm.
and I came across this song, and you're like, oh, just download it from iTunes and you can use it, and you were I was just I was like, well, how much can I pay you? And you were just like, like it was that sense of and I like it because that's how kind of I operate, is that I want to kind of give more than I get. Like you have a very
Hmm.
gracious personality, which it just relaxes you as a co-collaborator. Like I feel like you're very open. It's when you're not like, okay, I'll do this thing, but what are you going to do for me? And it's just your approach to in the little bit that we've kind of interacted. I appreciate people like that, and I think that doesn't get brought up enough in small business. That I think there's always this concept of, this kind of, I think about this with you because I remember I talked about you being an entrepreneur, and you were just like, what do you mean? I think there's a lot of baggage behind that word, and so I think small business owner, I mean, it's really the same thing, but it doesn't bring a lot of the baggage that comes with it. But really, when you're running a business, it's not always, I'm going to do this so that you get me that. There's at least that's not how I run my work, and I think that's where we kind of connect, is that there needs to be just a general sense of humanity that we sometimes forget when you're running a business, that it doesn't always have to be about numbers. Sometimes it could just be like, I'm going to do this thing because I just think, like you were saying, like from at the very beginning, coming all full circle, you're like, I'm in a position where I can help this business that you want to do, and you can't do that all the time and with everybody, but you're like, I can do this thing. I can choose to help this specific situation for here. And we forget, I think people forget when they're starting a business, that it's not cutthroat. You're not competing against everybody, that there's enough to go around, and you can have a generous core and still be in a business and kind of like grow. I don't know. I think that's really important. And I don't think that people talk about that. And I think that you have that, and it makes, like, it's what I think attracts people to you. It's like you don't realize the non-monetary things that you're doing, how they can actually bring monetary value your way. Like everything, I do believe in like karma and like everything kind of working out. And I really admire that about you. And even through all of this, like you're still trying to figure out how to give back. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Thank you. That was really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes at an expense. I will say that. Like at first I was just like, I'm I'm not going to value myself as much as I'm probably worth, and I'm just going to go at great lengths to, help people, or maybe undercharge because I know they're in a financial bind, or I'm going to deliver more than what I stated on the contract, or this and that. So like I do have to kind of turn off those thoughts and to say, like, stick to the plan, be firm, but be gentle, and still be generous. So find that balance between being generous but not overcommitting, and knowing that, yeah, every hour that you decide to do something for free or to help someone out, you're taking away that hour from being with your family, or you're taking away that hour from your own self development. So as I get older and as my time stretches thinner and thinner, I still want to be there for people, but to also say, hey, I respect your time, and I'm sure you do value other people's time. Let's find a happy medium between what I can do for you and what I can realistically deliver. So that it's definitely a learned skill. And I don't think people should just jump to the conclusion that, like, yeah, they should do work for free, or they should volunteer more time than they have for others. But definitely do it in a smart way, and do it in a way that people will know. Like, even if you can't overcommit like that, to let other people know that you are willing to help them, and that you genuinely value what they bring to the table, and that you want to help them move forward. So it's hard. Like, especially with how like sensitive of a person I am, I can overcommit easily, and I can, volunteer 3 days of my time to help someone without realizing that I'm neglecting maybe somebody else or a family member or another project or something. So, yeah, it's hard being so emotional for other people. But that's a good thing is like when I work with Lisa from Mian Studios, she always comes around and she's like, I will remember you when the brand takes off or when I have more financial freedom to give you what you actually deserve as an artist. Or, it's just like those words for me were so powerful from her that I was like, you're a keeper. Like, even if I don't do photography for you anymore and you find someone else that you like better, like, you are still going to be a top friend for me because those words were just so powerful, like I will remember you when things take off. And it's just like those are the people that I want to surround myself with, is like when I'm giving and I don't realize that maybe I'm being taken advantage of. um when someone can just tell you in a very like subtle way of like, I appreciate you, absolutely I will go like great lengths to help you out, as long as that appreciation is felt. But if someone is like not thankful at all for what you do for them, then I just take a step back. So
Yeah, and I think that's really good. I think one of the things I was thinking about too is a lot of people. Uh, I think this is like there's a lot of debate around this topic in the art community and creative community. Is you'll have people say do things for free and don't do things for free, and
mhm,
I think like most things, nothing is really lived in the extreme. It's how things play in the gray. I
mhm,
think the power comes when I think there's two things. I think one, it's recognizing um, that value exchange doesn't always have to be monetary, and that's why I love talking to people about. There's a company here, Limitless Bespoke. It's a local company that does custom suits, tailored suits for men and women,
mm,
and I love the company. Like the way that they approach everything, it was about an experience. Like you're buying something that a lot of people, it's for a wedding or you're gonna wear to feel powerful at work or just to
mhm,
whatever the event is. But they like know the people, like they bring them in, they have their favorite drink and their music playing, and like their whole and I think that their prices were yeah, like really great. Like is like you could the same price as like getting a suit at J Crew, but it's for like just built or made by mass produced, and not like something that's
mhm.
like specifically for you. And there's this whole experience around it. So I was chatting with them,
That's
and
cool.
it's a small business, and I was like, look, I think they have actually Josh Huskin, the guy I interviewed on the for the
Yeah.
magazine. He's I found out about them through him because he does the photographs. I'm like, man, your photographs are on point. Like he's really great, but I'm like, you don't really have a lot of video. You have some, but I really would love to come and help. And they're like, oh well, we're not in a position where we can actually pay you. And I was like, there's an exchange that's happening. Like me coming, like I want them to succeed. Like I believe in that company,
Mhm,
and I wanted them to everything about them. I wanted to work with that company, and there was an exchange that was still happening. Like one, I'm not getting other clients, and so like I get an opportunity to work with and to be a professional, and still like get a sense of like where I'm at. I think too, also like I'm getting introduced to other people. Like they do a lot of collaborations with people around the city, and so there's opportunities for me to be introduced to other people. Also, their audience is a diverse people that don't know me, and so I
mhm,
just let them know like, hey, I'm going to be fine. Like money's going to come. I really feel like my skill set,
It's an
I'm going to be all
investment
right.
though.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can't do that
Mhm.
with everybody. But like you were saying, like I find the people and I make sure that they understand that I am getting value from them, and they're getting value. But I also have to, I think another important thing for people, especially like younger, artists kind of getting into it is like, don't, don't be shy to do things for free. I think, with the debates
Mhm.
of like, know your worth and all this, it's like, well, I think that's true, but also don't, don't be afraid to be like, I think the biggest thing is to do things with zero expectation. If you're doing
Mhm.
it and you're thinking like, well, I hope you mention me in a post or I hope you like something comes of it, then I don't know that like for me, I don't do it. Like if I'm gonna do something, it's like
Mhm.
I if they don't do anything other than be like, hey, thanks for doing this, I need to take that job knowing that like that's all I'm getting and to
Mhm.
make sure that I can approach it the right way and I'm not because otherwise like most things and you get frustrated with is unmet expectation. And so when I need
Mhm.
to set my expectation correctly, but like I think kind of what you were saying is it's a give and take. You need to know your what you're able to take on, um, and if you're not able to do it, then don't feel bad in not doing
Don't
it.
do
But
it.
I think like you
Mhm.
said, like there is definitely a power in I don't know. I think that there is. I think that there's a lot to be said about figuring out how to navigate that part is just as important as figuring out how to navigate running the business. Because I think again, I think it ultimately comes back and it's, if you know you have the skills and you need the exposure, then there's the trade off, right? That you can
But you have to
kind
be
of exchange.
transparent about that, that's what you need.
Yeah,
And that exposure is it's such an abstract like benefit, or maybe like something of value, obviously. But if that's exactly what you want, you have to be explicit in that. And if you don't, then you can't infuse expectation into your art, because it's not really going to be art. It's just going to be
yeah,
a transaction, it's just a business.
yeah.
So I definitely think like you're right in that being transparent and having those conversations with the people that you want to work with, will help guide you and dictate exactly what you'll get out of it and what they will get out of it too.
Well, I always think this too, like coming, like we're both small business owners, right? Like we're both doing our own thing. That was like, that's why I love this exchange, non-monetary exchanges because people don't think about that from a small business. And like specifically this example, they were like, it's not just like exposure to people, but it's like, hey, if someone comes in looking for, to get a suit for a wedding, like we could go in on something where I photograph or I video the experience of,
Mhm.
I also want to do the wedding. And so like
Mhm.
they, there's part of like, you want to do the suit and I also want to have service that would benefit both sides. Like I do a video of them getting
Mhm.
ready and getting the suit that helps them, but then it also is a video for the client
Yeah.
and being able
Yeah,
to like work
absolutely.
together because a
Mhm.
lot of times they're meeting people and they have relationships that they know when things are happening and could introduce be like, hey, here's Mark, he
Mhm.
so and the moment that I was talking that way, they're just like, oh, interesting, like it made them. I think opportunities for you to make people ambassadors for you is I don't think people would think about that in business enough, but like you said, like being upfront, I was just like, look, I think I really like, I met with them. I like the personality. And when that works, like you were saying, I think there's a lot of having, because I have a day job that I don't have to worry about bills. I think I should make that clear. It
Mhm.
allows me to be more creative with the business side of the art. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And
I don't know.
and
I think there's something
I,
interesting there.
yeah, I think this works pretty well in the wedding industry, where like I might work with somebody who I know is like a makeup artist or a hairstylist or somebody who does florals, and I might work really closely with them. And I yes, I interact with them as like a friend, but it's also for me a way to gauge of like, how does this person work under pressure? How does this person work with others? Um, and I love like building that trust like slowly but consistently with someone where I'm like, I can vouch for you and I will happily send your work over to a potential client, and
Hmm.
I will, refer you. And so like building that community definitely takes time, but I think it's definitely through your actions and the way that you approach your business and the way that you show passion for your business outside of just making, quick buck or making some money out of it, but also showing compassion for other people and wanting to build up businesses. I think that that is such like a powerful tool that you can use to connect people with each other and help them get clients. And like you said with karma, like that does come back around. It definitely comes. And that phrase of like, I will remember you, like I apply that for everything of like, I want you to remember my work ethic. I want you to remember how I interacted with the client on this wedding day. I want you to remember, the quality of my work when I do deliver, a full gallery to somebody. I want you to remember these little bits and pieces because yeah, when a client comes around, I might be the person that you think of to refer them. And it goes, the same way with them and their business. So I definitely think wanting to be remembered in a positive way and not just for your art, but also for the way that you interact with people is just
Yeah.
a good way to approach your business.
Wow. That was powerful. I really liked that. I I think there's a lot of truth in that. I know that like when we talked before, you like to do a lot of different things. Is
Mhm.
that have you recognized that that is how you handle stress? Because I do think that like it's really important, like you were talking about. I, mental health wasn't a thing when we were younger, and then
Mhm.
I feel like our generation is like recognizing like it just as important as physical health. You have mental health, um, and so managing
Yes.
stress is like a big thing for me too, especially when you have kids. Like and and with the situation kind of heightens a lot of stuff. So do you feel like that you were doing that to manage stress, and since you're not doing these, you don't have the outlets of like doing the floral stuff and the photography as much, and the other
Mhm.
schooling or job, or um, is that what you're
Um,
missing? Or
well, so I think I will always be the type of person that will do multiple things at once. And I learned this. It's not terribly bad for me to take on multiple projects. I will always find something to latch onto and to do. But I am learning a little bit more about myself and why that is, and taking this time to be a little bit more patient with myself. Where if I can't find something to do, um, then how do I make the most of that time? You know
mm,
what I mean? Like if if I can't do 20 things all at once, how do I do 3 things and do them really well? And I mean, yeah, that could either just be rebuilding my website or riding my bike every day or homeschooling my son. But I don't feel like I need to go out and do things. I feel like now everything that I want to do is more, there's like an inflection point where it's all coming from within versus like physically, how do I
mm,
keep myself busy? So I don't know. I mean, I learned in April that I have adult ADHD, and that was like, that diagnosis for me was a complete turning point, and I've done a 360 since then. And I've just been like listening to podcasts, reading research papers, like absorbing all of this information to kind of tell me a little bit more about myself and why I am the way I am 28 years later. So yeah, I don't know. It's just there's so much that I need to organize in my head of like, how do I be a better person without being so stressed about not accomplishing everything that I want to in a single day? Um,
Mm.
and yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are struggling with that right now, but I think for ADHD brains, it's especially hard because we're constantly picking up new projects and we may not finish what we started and we may jump onto new things after that and not finish what we started then.
Mhm.
So for me it's like, how do I wrap up a project? I mean, with this chair, if I didn't realize that I have a issue with finishing stuff, this has taught me that because it's taken me so long. um but yeah, it's like there's so much learning I have to do within myself first.
I think that you and we have very similar personalities. How is that with Justin? You know, how he navigates that. Does he mind having so many? Because that could be a burden for people if they hate seeing you jump from a lot of different things. I'm the same way. We'll have a lot of things and some things I don't finish and kind of like move around, but that could be irritating for partners or for other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think once we both learned of my diagnosis, it a lot of things were way clearer for us, and he was way more patient with me. Um, and he's he's a programmer, so for him, it's like he can sit down at his desk and work and finish his work in 8 hours. And for me, I might need 12 hours to finish something, and it takes me a really long time to finish something. So starting something is even harder. And I've been wanting to learn how to code, learning specifically how to code Python. And he makes fun of me because I'm like talking to my friend, like, yeah, I'm learning Python and this and that. He's like laughing in the background, like, you're not learning Python. Like, you bought the course 3 months ago and you haven't started it. And I'm like, so I want to learn Python. So I'll it's interesting because like I know now with my brain, I will start whatever sounds the most like exciting and cool and most rewarding. But with Python or with programming languages, like I know it's going to take a long time to master it. I know it's going to take a long time for me to sit down in front of the computer every day and practice it. Even with learning an instrument, like I've had a banjo for 4 years and I've never learned how to play it because I just know it's going to take so long that I would rather do something else that's like quick and rewarding and like exciting and cool. And you can't really do that in this world or this environment right now. So I have to try and be patient with myself and like, and Justin knows this too, that it's going to take me a while to start something, but then once I get into it, like I can hyper focus and I will really be interested in it. But starting something is actually really hard for me unless I think it's cool.
With that, I think one of the things I'll say that I like to tell people, it's exactly how I started everything that I do. Is for me, I think one of the things I've noticed is that um, well, with interviewing people and kind of like uncovering, talking to them about like how do they create the life that they have. Um, it to me it comes down to habits, and
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things, especially like I think you may relate to this, but it could be overwhelming to think of like I have to do everything. And so for me, what I tried to do is like when I start something for the magazine, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna take an hour a day every day until I publish it, and then I knew I wanted to do it like every year. So I'm like, if it takes a year to do it, oh, well, and I didn't stop watching Netflix. I didn't stop, having my own time. It was like I could find 1 hour, even if that in that hour, it was just to like think and just to like
Mm-hmm.
focus on like, what do I need to do to keep moving this thing forward? I think I tweeted this the other day. It's like when you're starting something new, momentum is your oxygen. And I think it's very important to set yourself up to focus on the momentum and less about the achievement. You focus on, the outcome. And again, I just think like half an hour a day, like I'm going to just pick up the banjo. I'm going to open up the computer. Even if I just look at it for a half an hour, I'm dedicating half an hour. I can find that. Right. And I think that helps to snowball. And I just think that's a important thing. I don't know if that would help you or not, but when people say they have trouble starting, create the habits that work for you, like 15 minutes, 5 minutes, or I'm just going to do it once a week, or whatever it is. Like that was for the videos. It's like, I'm gonna put out a video every week. I just reached my 1 year mark, by the way, of doing YouTube videos.
Nice.
So,
Congrats.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important nugget when you're feeling overwhelmed. Just like allow yourself to not get like, you don't have to do everything right now. Like you have time. So you're just like, I'm gonna do like whatever it is that makes sense, and then readjust if it doesn't. Like have that feedback loop. I think that was one of the hardest things. I had tried so many things before the magazine, and I feel like that's for me I feel like I'm on track. I don't know, this is weird, but I feel like I'm going to be successful. I think if anybody looks at like where I am right now, they would think, you've only sold 19 magazines in 6 years. Like, why are you putting in all this work? No one's watching. I have like 10 views on my videos. Like nobody cares. But it's the fact that like I feel like what I've learned as I've done all this to create skills for myself, that when the moment comes, I'd be able to execute on things that like everything that I'm doing is what gets me to my next best work. And I think there's something really powerful about habits and doing things that allow you to accomplish the outcomes that you're trying to get, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry,
No, I love that.
tangent.
No, I think that it's very relevant, and it's something that I definitely have to remind myself, because I am stuck in this bubble of my little apartment, and I have one guy over my shoulder like laughing at me because I haven't started anything, and that for me is like, well, you know what, I'm not going to start it at all, because you're judging me. But I have to hear it from other people, and to know like that I'm not the only one struggling with starting something that I really want to do, in order for me to say like, yeah, this is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it. Like, I'm just going to sit down and start that one day, or that 1 hour of
Yeah.
practicing or learning something. And then, like you said, it will snowball. But I mean, and that's what I'm talking about. It's like, yes, I know that there are things that I want to work on, but before I work on them, I have to first teach myself to minimize that lag time of just starting something and sticking with it. And whether that's with meditation or focus or exercise, being diligent and establishing those routines. For me, I know that once I get really good at that skill of starting something and being consistent, that will translate into anything else that I want to do. So
Yeah.
whether that's something that's really hard, like learning a programming language, or I don't know, something else that comes up. But yeah, I have to work on that, and it only comes with practice.
I also think too, like, you mentioned something earlier on when you were talking about, I can't remember exactly what you were talking about, but you were saying like you're coming to like understand yourself a lot more, and I think that's something that I've really been thinking about a lot, with like the therapy and everything, and like the evolution that I've been going through, is just to like give yourself a break. And if you don't do it,
Mhm.
like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. like it's two things. Like either one, it wasn't that important, or two, you didn't care about it. And so
Yeah.
don't care about it. Like let it go. And so like if you
Right.
don't do the coding, like I had tried a bunch of stuff, and I had this like angst in me, but the truth was like I just didn't find the thing that I cared. Now when I finally started the YouTube stuff, I thought about doing when I started the magazine back in 2015. I started it last year. As to finally when I get to it, when I started it, I knew like I don't let up. And so I knew that I was like, I'm going to do it, but I can't do it until I'm ready to fully commit. And I'd be totally fine if I would have done it for 2 months and I'm like, I don't enjoy it. But I'd done it for 2 months, and but I just think allowing yourself to just like feel who you are. I think I spent so much time like having shame for not doing things or doing things. And the moment that you just like, I don't know, like let give yourself a break. I know it's easy to say, but when you realize that it's like it didn't matter to me as much, and so I didn't get it done. But when something does matter, like look at how you were successful in the things that you've done so far. Like to get to where you are in photography, you cared about it enough to like be a really incredible photographer. So you could do that again when something comes up that like ignites you. Yeah, just I think we're really hard on ourselves, and don't be hard on yourself. Sorry, are you,
Walter's barking. Or he's growling.
did
No.
did you have anything else? I feel like we covered a ton of stuff. There's some really good things. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of like wrap up with, or things you're interested in, or anything that you want we didn't get to that you wanted to kind of circle back to?
No, I mean, I did want to follow up on what you just said. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you on the point where, like, if you're not interested in it, just falls off. Like, don't be too hard on yourself and don't, feel like, oh, well, I'm inferior because I couldn't finish what I started, or I couldn't, you know, finish the last chapter of that book that I really wanted to read, but, maybe I just wasn't interested in it. And then being able to just pivot from that and quickly pick something else up, or even to just channel that angst into something that just will do good for other people and not necessarily make you a better person, but also help other people out. And I've been trying to do this lately. I mean, my brother called me up and he was like, I need your help because my salon's closing. I can't work anymore. Like I've already done the first shutdown. I've already lived through that. I laid low and I did my due diligence, and now that everything's closing again in LA, like I really need an extra set of hands. Let's convert the garage into an outdoor barbershop. So it's like things like that where I'm like, yes, please give me something to do, because if not, I'm going to just, get cooped up here thinking about what I haven't done. And I would rather just do, little projects for other people. And yeah, maybe not necessarily photography related, or, maybe not a skill that I'm great at, but I have two hands, like I can help. And I think that that's something that people need to remember, is that like we can channel that angst or that feeling of like, we're trapped and there's nothing that we can do right now, but there are other ways to help people out. And I want, if Levi were old enough to understand this concept right now, I would want him to know that, like, use your time wisely, be a good person, help each other out, because we're all in this together and we can't do it alone. um, and for people to just continue staying in touch. Let's talk again later on. Maybe we'll have better things to talk about besides COVID and the stress that everyone's going through. Maybe the next interview with you and I is going to be like, I don't know, hopefully I've accomplished something that I'm excited to talk about. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I really appreciate you pointing that out. Is so much it's uh like I think the point that you said is that I have two hands, I can help. We forget that like we are all humans. Like we're really not different. Like that was one of the things, like one of the biggest things for me when I lived in France for 2 years. It was like I went over there. I remember the first time being there, it felt like being in America, but just like obviously a different culture, older buildings and everything. But like you get this sense of like people are people, especially going from like, first world country to first world country. Everyone had iPods there. This is 2004, so everyone had iPods and were doing their thing. Life there wasn't that different from life here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different language, and yeah, there's like different cultural things, but like we are all human, and I can help. I think that's a really powerful thing when you're like, that wasn't for me. Like that wasn't for me. You didn't help him because you were getting a better at anything. It was like this person you love needed help, and you stepped in, and that's the kind of person you are. I think that says a lot.
I did tell him to paint the studio walls white in case I ever wanted to photograph there. So I did exert some influence over him. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to adapt, and I don't even know if he can operate out of the garage. The studio looks great, by the way. We did a great job with it. And it's just like there's so much up in the air that we don't know if like he can even work out of it. But at the same time, it was like I contributed an ounce of hope for him. I lended my time to help someone else out. And that was such a good feeling, like lots of endorphins that week of like, I did something good or I helped someone out. Like, why don't I do this more often? Or why does it take a pandemic for me to drop whatever I'm doing and like go help somebody? So I think reevaluating that 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 small bit of happiness or hope or help that you can give someone and what it does for you is like not a monetary value, but such like good vibes all around, especially in like this really difficult time right now. I think is what we all really need. So I don't know. I'd like to see more of that.
You reminded me when you were talking about your son and wanting to kind of like grasp this concept of like connecting and helping. It reminded me of the letter that I wrote to my kids, and at the very close of it. So at the end of each volume, I write, a letter of like where I am at that point. And so with this one, there's a lot that I liked in it, but one of the things that it made me think of that you were saying was, so I talked about how, like at the end of each year, I kind of like think back, like what can I share that would help them? And again, like I think about them, everything that I write, I think about them in their 20s and 30s, because they're not going to be looking at this in high school. Like they're not going to be reading these things, but at some point they're going to get to an age where they're like, why did dad do this? This is interesting. And I hope that they pick up one of the books and just read one of these letters, and it will sink in at that point. But I talked about like the big thing that I realized for this year was like my search, my journey is mine and yours is yours. And, I think a lot of times I was talking to my friend, a lot of times parents get caught up in the lives of their kids, and they forget to allow them to experiment and find out things that are opposite of what they believe. And I want them to feel comfortable finding themselves. And the sooner that I think you can do that, I think the powerful. But like the underlying thing that I was saying was like the search to find the life that you want. And I said empathy is like a useful tool. But knowing that, so I'm like at the closing, and I just leave off with kind of the core of what you're saying. May you continually operate from love, kindness, and respect for everyone you meet. And I feel like that it's kind of like what you were saying is when I look at my kids, like those things that you do is like just being a good, kind person, remembering that is really important that we pass that on. And yeah, the fact that you guys are doing that, like I've only met Justin the one time we went to pizza, but like you guys are like both super cool. And I know that a lot of you're just good people, and passing that on, I think there's a lot that unknown things that your son's getting, that he's just going to be like a really solid individual, just because there's so much love between you, but as individuals you're very good, strong, kind people. And yeah, anyway, I'm just
okay.
explaining how awesome you guys are. But I think that's powerful that you're kind of saying that, like remembering that. I'm glad that you reminded me of that. I think that's powerful. Okay,
we gotta spread it. It's up to us to spread it around.
Yeah, well, you're already doing your work. Yeah, you're good at. I gotta remember. It's good talking with you. I think that you bring out some really good. You remind me of like really good things that I can continue to do. So it's always a joy to chat with you. And
thanks, Mark. Same here, man. I feel like this is a therapy session for me. So we could have more of it. I'll pay you, but
absolutely not. Like this is it's therapy on both sides. I think it's wonderful. That's honestly why I started doing this, is that just it instigates good conversations, and I think and then just share it with other people, and there's something to be said about doing that. So I'm excited for the next time we talk to see how what projects you're involved in. Don't forget to send me a picture of the chair. I'm interested. We've done chairs and sofas. We've done 2 or 3 sofas. When Anita was pregnant, that was the sign that she was pregnant. She would reupholster everything. She'd buy sofas. Yeah. So we've
that's a true form of nesting right there.
So I'm definitely interested in your work.
I'm excited. I will definitely send you pictures. I just don't understand why people can like neglect a perfectly good, beautiful chair, like why treat it so poorly? But it can be saved. It can be resurrected. So we'll see. I'll send you pictures. But yeah, thanks for the conversation, Mark. I think it's great that you're using your time this way and talking to people. And I definitely think more people should be doing that, especially now more than ever, having these hard conversations, asking hard questions that teach us to think about what we're doing with our time, how we're leveling up, or how we're spreading kindness to other people during this time. So yeah, we'll talk later, and hopefully I'll have some great stuff to catch you up on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a pleasure. All right. I'll see you next time.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.